Hi everyone, thanks for joining. I just wanted to give a little bit of background on myself, and Gareth will do the same, just so you know who we are and where we came from. I'm the head of sustainability for Telefónica UK and Europe, better known to everyone who lives in the UK as O2. Previously, I worked at the Body Shop and the Cooperative Bank, and I think the sort of thread through my career has always been a big belief that business can be a force for social and environmental change. And I think my motivating kind of force behind this is Anita Roddick, who, when I was at Manchester University, gave an impassioned speech about profit with principles. And back in the early 90s, that was still quite a radical concept. I think business as a whole has moved a long way since then. But it's still the framework of belief that she has is still something that really motivates me day to day. Gareth.
Afternoon, folks. My name's Gareth Rice. I've been working with O2 now for about 5 years, and my background is basically coming out of a consultancy area, I suppose, at the very outset of my career in sustainability, but then moving into electronics with Panasonic, where I worked for about 10 years. And the thing that attracted me to kind of what we're doing within O2 is the difference between, if you like, a more, typical Japanese mindset on sustainability versus the O2 one. And I think as we go through today's slides, you'll kind of see that coming through in terms of the idea of bringing fresh ideas into sustainability and the power of good into the business. So yeah, I think that should come through. I'll hand back to Bill, and he'll lead on today's webinar.
Hi. So a bit of just background on Telefónica. In the UK as O2, we have 23 million customers, but we're actually one of the world's leading integrated operators in telecoms, and we mainly operate in Europe and Latin America in 24 countries as a whole. And as of June this year, we had a total number of customers of 317 million. Hopefully, in terms of kind of my approach to sustainability and our team at O2's, you've had a chance to read Tom Idle, the editor at 2 Degrees interview. And I know as a result of that, we had some questions and answers from the 2 Degrees kind of audience, and we'll definitely be trying to cover those through the presentation, but there will also be time at the end. So we're trying to keep this presentation to finish by around 3:30, so there's plenty of time for Q&As. We're going to focus really on the strategy and journey we've been on as O2, and we're also going to be asking some questions throughout the presentation just to keep it interactive. As we know, we've got an international audience on the webinar today. We're interested in our first poll, just asking you the question: O2 in the UK is part of the global company Telefónica. Are you interested in our wider sustainability commitments and how we're performing beyond the UK? So just a quick poll. And Lucinda, you have to guide us on how many people have voted.
Yeah, sure. The results are coming in. We've got just a minute left for you to give responses.
Lucinda, would you like us to continue on, or would you like us to wait until the responses come in?
It's up to you, really. I don't think anyone else is responding now, so I can give you the results as they are so far, which is yes, 51%, no, 9%. And no answer, 40%.
Okay, great. That was just a trial, a bit of a warm-up for more questions that we have later on. If we then get moving on, I just wanted to talk about the kind of Telefónica's company belief, which is we believe the possibilities of technology should be open to everyone so that people can live better, do more, be more. And I think it's a really good belief statement to have, because by the nature of opening up possibilities, you also have to break down barriers. So there's something at the core of this, which is very much about liberalising and democratising the opportunities that come from digital. We're obviously in a really exciting time just in terms of the speed of change. We've got 4G being rolled out across the UK that will significantly change the power of the remote remote controls for our life that we'll have in our hands, our smartphones. But more than that, I think one of the big opportunities is enable customers to really make the most of our technology. And we talk a lot within the business about digital confidence. But it's interesting, although young people are digital natives, one of the things we've been working with young people around the country on is also enabling them to understand that they can be producers of digital as well as consumers. So when we run sessions with young people, I think one of the interesting things, for example, is that only out of often sessions we run of 100 young people, only a few of them have known how to code. So again, when we look at that company belief, we see that ability to democratise and open up opportunities, partly to be about opening up the real possibilities of digital. And that means not just being a consumer of digital, but also a producer of digital as well. So that is our belief. You'll probably be more familiar with it in the UK with our slightly more light-hearted approach of the Be More Dog campaign. I think the way to think about this is the spirit of the dog is about embracing technology, and the spirit of the cat is somebody who's probably less engaged with the benefits of technology. And obviously we have this amazing transformation of this cat-like character who starts to behave like a dog. But the point about this is really about actually unlocking our passion and the opportunities for technology. And we just want people to get excited about those possibilities. There's clearly, been particularly in the last 6 months, a lot of, I think, focus, particularly in the UK media, about the risks of technology. And of course, that is a core part of managing digital responsibility. But also the opportunities are immense, both for young people and the whole population. So, on to Think Big. This is our sustainability approach. It's our plan for people and the planet. And we developed it around 3.5 years ago. And what really drives it now, and the central part of Think Big, is our blueprint. But we want to share a little bit more of a background about how we developed our strategy, how we moved from, frankly, I suppose, something that was in a PowerPoint through to something that's been executed and driven across the whole business and has moved us from being what we dub on Forum for the Future Leadership model as a beginner through to a leader. And this journey, we just got on the side here, it really began in 2008 when a number of us working with Forum for the Future started to review our approach to sustainability. We didn't have a joined up sustainability strategy, and our starting point here was, one, to work with Forum for the Future to look at where we were as a business, but secondly, to look at how we could develop a more ambitious strategy that would get us to leader by 2012. But I think a critical part of that journey as well was also talking to a lot of different customers and our own people about what they wanted us to focus on. And the message that came out very strongly from the research that we did was they wanted us to focus on young people and the environment, as well as managing the other responsibility issues that we had to deal with. We developed a kind of CEO-led task force to drive this through the business and a set of star projects. And really those started to begin to deliver in 2009 with propositions like O2 Recycle, getting the Carbon Trust standard, and also sort of a green offer in terms of phones with the Green Heart with Sony. But that was very much the start of our journey, and I think by 2010 we started to see a lot more innovation. We launched our Think Big campaign to our own people, and we very quickly got very high staff awareness and engagement. And that was partly because across the business we set up these volunteer groups called Big Thinkers, who actually had money and the freedom to drive this agenda across our call centres and other retail outlets across the business. And then by 2011, I think our kind of view was that we very much got it embedded in the brand strategy. We had a lot of different projects driving the agenda, but there was a gap in the sense of getting to leader, and that's really where I think the blueprint comes in. And I think the major reason for this gap was, although we created a lot of different initiatives, and those included things like Eco Rating, which was the world's first sustainability ranking of phones, our flexible working initiative really aimed at businesses, which demonstrated how flexible working has a triple bottom line benefit of cutting your carbon impact as a business, improving the work-life balance of your employees, but also boosting productivity. We had initiatives like that, O2 Learn, that was democratising education. As I said, O2 Recycle, that's now one of the top 3 phone recycling schemes in the UK. But despite all these initiatives, when we asked stakeholders, they were struggling to join the dots. And I think even internally, having made a lot of progress, the longer-term vision for where we wanted to go as a business wasn't clear. And I think also Forum for the Future challenged us and said if we really wanted to be a leader, we had to set out a bolder vision for the future as well.
Okay, let me jump in here now quickly, folks, because the natural next step from that is, well, how do you make a blueprint in 5 easy steps for beginners? And that was the question that we faced round about the early part of 2011. And I would say overall it took us about a year to develop what became the Think Big blueprint. And I guess in true house building style, we should start with the foundations. And I think what we had strived to make sure happened from the very outset of the blueprint, that it was in essence based into the primary ambition and goals of our business per se on a day-to-day basis. By the time we'd reached 2011, the sustainability team was reasonably well embedded with our strategy team, so we were working quite closely together with those guys on a regular basis anyway. Our strategy team in O2 would tend to have overall ownership of our midterm and 3-year plans, and we recognized that if we were wanting to make some form of sustainability plan or agenda or strategy, it needed to be fundamentally based on what we were doing as a business. So in essence, what that meant was the foundation stones for this whole exercise were based on our fundamental 3-year plans, and in essence, each directorate, as we call them, or each department within the business's own 3-year mission was where we started the conversations with them on the blueprint. What we've always strived to do within O2, and this is a sort of an adage that's come down from our CEO directly, is that sustainability shouldn't be owned by the sustainability team. Sustainability should be owned by the business. And Ronan Dunn has empowered our directors and mandated them to, in essence, own sustainability in each of their areas. So what that meant for us as a sustainability team in 2011 was, once we had this 3-year plan and a midterm plan, was really working across each of those different areas of our business to kind of look mutually and collaboratively with them at their 3-year plans, and basically have the discussion of saying, okay, what is there in your 3-year plan that might lend itself to the sustainability agenda? And the sustainability agenda in its widest sense, not just the environmental side, not just the community side, but the corporate responsibility and ethical side as well. And we spent a series of months working with them, actually building on their 3-year plans into what became known as commitments, if you like, or pledges of what they were going to do over the 3 years of sustainability. And what we did as a team was, in essence, the sustainability team came up with a kind of a brainstormed, if you like, a starter for 10 pack of ideas that we had looking at their plans, and then in essence socialized them with the business, and as I said, over a course of several months, and in conjunctions with workshops facilitated by the sustainability team and indeed by Forum for the Future, we kind of started to hone in on sort of significant and powerful activities and deliverables that they could provide as a business on the sustainability agenda. And I suppose, starting that process in the spring of 2011, by the time we got to the late summer, we had what was a reasonably robust set of activities and ideas that the business had on sustainability. And then what essence happened then was it was up to the sustainability team to, in essence, kind of look at those ideas and separate the wheat from the chaff, if you like, and identify a series of at a reasonable level, a series of pledges or commitments that we would want to pin our colours to the mast to publicly and promote what we were going to do on sustainability. And we had that, I guess, more or less by October of November of 2011. But the other big challenge that we'd had from stakeholders at the outset of this whole process of building the blueprint, as Bill says, was getting feedback from our stakeholders in terms of what they wanted. And what they were saying was that they expected O2 to kind of come up with a series of big, hairy, audacious goals that we were going to stand for as a business. It's all very well having, a fundamental basic commitments, but what do those all add up to? And in essence, what we were left with as a challenge as a sustainability team towards the latter quarter of 2011 was basically looking at the commitments that we had on the table from across the business and transferring that into, in essence, those big, hairy, audacious goals. And I suppose our mindset as a sustainability team going into that was really kind of asking ourselves, where can we have the biggest impact and what is our biggest impact as a business? And not surprisingly, that would lend us to a goal that focused itself around energy and carbon, because that's our primary impact by the nature of what we do. Then the second question we kind of focused on and looked at is, well, what are we passionate about? And O2 had always had a particular passion on the community agenda and particularly on the young people's agenda, so it was only natural that we would have a goal on that and something meaty to declare publicly. And then the final question, I suppose, was really, well, where can we have influence? And as Bill said at the outset of this conversation, we have 21, 22 million customers across the UK as Telefónica UK O2, and that's clearly where our influence can lie. And it was really out of those three pieces of rationale that we kind of came up with the three goals that you see if you've had a chance of looking at the O2 blueprint. And these are them, as they say. By 2015, helping 1 million young people develop skills for life and lead community projects across the UK. Again, by 2015, to make sure that our products and services will be helping 10 million people live easier and more sustainable lives. And by 2015, to deliver carbon savings to customers that are 10 times the impact of our network. And basically what we did was, in essence, cluster the different commitments into those categories. So if you imagine, for example, our operations director, who would clearly have a series of commitments looking at, well, all sorts of utilities, but energy in particular, and that was something that would partially go to the third of those goals. Equally, we had a series of commitments on community that we've had for a number of years, and we built upon those to develop the first one. And then when we looked at the products and services, and we'll come back to that in a minute with Bill, we could see that there was potential there to engage a significant customer base through new products and services that we currently are or will be offering as a business. Before I hand back to Bill, actually, with kind of talking a little bit about those deliverables, we wanted to kind of conduct another survey, which was really asking you guys on the call whether you were aware of Think Big and indeed the Think Big blueprint before this webinar. And you can see up on the top left, right-hand side of your screen, the bullets to choose from. It would be really helpful for us if you could kind of make your choice. The feedback for us is very, very useful, and what we'll do is allow about 90 seconds for those questions. So we'll hold on for a minute or so to let you answer, and then maybe Lucinda, you can just give us all of us a quick update on where the results stack up.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm conscious of time. Lucinda, do you want to tell us what the scores on the doors are so far?
Yeah, sure. So, yes, think big, 44%. Yes, think big blueprint, 0%. Yes to both, 31%. And no, 25%.
Cool. Interesting results. Thanks, folks. Let me hand over to Bill and talk a little bit about how we're doing.
Thanks, Gareth. So, how are we getting on? Inevitably, with such a radical plan with a target date of 2015, we've encountered successes, new opportunities that we haven't anticipated, but also challenges. So the overview in terms of our 40 commitments that underpin the 3 goals is 23 of the commitments are on target or achieved. 15 require added impetus or supercharging, as we like to say in O2, or potential also amendment to reflect changing conditions or business pressures. So we're planning to be open and transparent about our progress, and we'll publish another status update next year, which will focus in more detail on the 3 goals. But we wanted initially to very much focus on progress against the 40 commitments. I think one of the things that has kind of, I think, been underlined by the blueprint is where we've, I suppose, added innovation to kind of fuel the 3 goals. So some of the big successes in the last year have been the launch of Go Think Big with Bauer, and also winning the smart meter contract with the Department of Energy and Climate Change, which will see us playing a role in installing over 20 million smart meters across Great Britain by 2020. And I'd give that as probably 2 examples of whereas I think as a technology business, probably versus your M&Ss or other businesses more in retail, technology changes so quickly and opportunities come up so quickly that actually this plan has to be a living plan, because simply it's impossible to predict in 3 years' time how technology will have changed. And it reminds me when I joined O2 and we were initially working with Forum on our sustainability strategy back in 2008, we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have apps. And now we take those for granted, but we should naturally expect more revolutions in technology in the next 3 years. And I think that's why, to a degree always as a team with this, we need to have what I'd call a kind of beta mindset where we're trying new things, we're trying innovation, and also we recognise that if, something called fast failure, so if we've tried things and they actually have not succeeded, generally in the technology industry, the concept is you don't keep flogging a dead horse, you actually move on to the next innovation that can drive progress. As I said, we're aiming to communicate the bigger progress on the 3 goals in spring next year, but today is really focusing on the commitments and the progress that we've made. I think kind of linked to that, it would be very useful, having previously asked our stakeholders what they feel are the most important issues for O2, to get a sense from the following question of what you think is the number 1 priority for us. And you'll see we have a number of different choices. Is it the environment? Is it community and young people? Is it digital inclusion? Opening up the benefits of technology? I think it's currently 12 million people in the UK who don't have access. Is it digital privacy? Obviously a big issue recently with the furore over the US-UK agencies monitoring traffic. Is it child protection? Is it the ethical supply chain? Is it health? Or is it another issue? So opportunity really for you just to have your say on what you think the priorities are. As Gareth said, we did do detailed stakeholder research on priorities before, but always good to keep the insight fresh. So over to the audience.
Okay, so we've got the results for that. 17% say environment, 17% say community and young people, 29% say digital inclusion, 8% say digital privacy, 8% say child protection, 12% say ethical supply chain, 4% say health, and 4% say other.
Great, thanks. I think it's an interesting one to kind of look at those results, and definitely having looked more recently at kind of research from consumers, I think what we've noticed as a trend currently is social issues, particularly the youth crisis is probably one of the top concerns, and the environment has slightly dropped down the agenda. That is what I think our view is a kind of trend you would expect during a recession, and as conditions improve, I would expect the environment to again go up the agenda. What we just wanted to do quickly now is just talk a bit about some of the innovations that we've introduced to help us meet the goals. And the first one is Go Think Big. And one of the reasons I think I wanted to highlight it is I think when we started out on the journey for Think Big, we were very much thinking about how we as a business could solve social and environmental problems, and we didn't necessarily have what I'd call a kind of open source mindset, which is looking at how could we collaborate, particularly with other businesses, to solve those problems. And Go Think Big, firstly, was a partnership with Bauer Media, and it's at core, it's a digital portal where young people can help get a foot on the career ladder. And really what it's about is about democratizing work skills and experience. I probably think we've all had the experience internally within companies of seeing that work experience doesn't necessarily go to the most disadvantaged young people. And what this is really about is about opening those opportunities up, because the evidence is that young people who are stuck in unemployment are young people who can't get a foot on their ladder because they can't get work experience. So what we did with Bauer Media is commit to creating 30,000 work experience and skills opportunities over the next 3 years. And what we've also done is thought in a fresh way about work experience. And our view is it doesn't necessarily have to be the 2 weeks. It can be supercharged by doing a 1-day skills day, a 1-day shadowing. The major thing is for companies to kind of open up opportunities as much as possible to young people so that they can get into workplaces and really experience different careers. And at the same time, we deliver a lot of inspiring content, but what we've done is we've signed up 30 other companies so far to offer their opportunities through Go Think Big. And for any company that's not signed up on the call, who's based in the UK, would encourage you to sign up. And I think the other side of this, and one of the things that I think O2 is very good at doing, is we also find routes through popular culture to really ensure what we're doing connects with young people. And we teamed up with Rizzle Kicks, a well-known hip-hop band, and we actually made the biggest intern-led music video with them. And that led to actually when they launched their video for Lost Generation, the kind of main top single from the latest album, Go Think Big, and O2 was very much centre stage because we'd helped them make the video and enabled 100 interns to be part of that. So that's just one example, I think, of what we've done. The next one is Charger Out of the Box, which Gareth will talk about.
Okay, folks, I'm conscious of time, so I'll kind of cut back on this material, but in essence, one of the other, I suppose, the successes that came out of the blueprint, and one of the commitments that garnered most interest with our stakeholder and media community was this one, which was really trying to make a stand on charges coming out of the box. And it's an interesting one because when you look across all the stakeholders, this is something that they're passionate about. But when at the start of this project we went out to our own customer community and asked them how did they feel about us taking charges out of the box, I mean, 47% were positive about it, but frankly, actually, that statistic is a misnomer. I think we can safely say that pretty much 97% of the audience pretty much thought it was a dreadful idea. And what we did with that same audience was then take this to the next step and basically explain to them the reason why we would be doing it, being a fundamentally sustainability-related one. and we had almost like an instant turnaround of that negativity, and consumers were telling us when they were explained to about why O2 was doing this and the benefits from a sustainability perspective, and the fact that we had 100 million unused charges in the UK, and that 70% of customers already had a charger that was suitable for their new phone. We got almost like an instant turnaround of that figure, to a point where I think only about 27% of people were sceptical about seeing charges come out of the box. And what we did as an organisation when we first launched this just over a year ago is we set ourselves a target of about I think about 70% of people not taking a charger. We did offer a charger at cost to anyone who wanted one, but we were very pleased to see that actually the statistics to date are showing more than 80% of people are actually quite happy not to take a charger, and we're now finding more support and enthusiasm from our supplier community, and continue to drive this towards our goal of eliminating charges by 2015. Very quickly then, just one other example, I suppose, and there's plenty to choose from, but we thought you might be interested in hearing a little bit more about sort of O2's stance on flexi working. And this is a big commercial focus for us now. We're selling a lot of technology to organisations, great and small, that enable their people to work more remotely and work more flexibly. And we've spent a long time over the last 12 months making sure that we drink our own champagne, so to speak. And I think some of you may have been aware of the working from home day that we launched, flexi working day that we launched in February of last year, where we basically asked everyone in our headquarter office not to come into the office but to work remotely. And that was very successful, both externally in terms of raising awareness, but internally too, in terms of engaging folks in the organisation who might have been a little bit nervous about the technology behind flexi working. And I think the shift that we saw in their capability of doing that, and the comfort levels that they achieved in flexi working, and indeed the increased productivity, which is very important for any business in these financial times, was very encouraging to us, and we continue driving that and continue to drive that within Telefónica UK across the business. I'll leave that on that and hand back to Bill on innovation.
Yeah, and this was just a quick one to flag. Obviously, when we designed the blueprint, we left in an innovation gap between the commitments and the goals, and this reflected the fact that with technology changing so fast, we didn't want to set conservative goals. I think our view is that actually sustainability plans are best when they stretch the business out of their comfort zone, and often it's easier to make changes in your core, but what you want to do with innovation is get the business to think differently. So we've driven work around that in terms of products and services. I think at the same time, Telefónica's launched Eyres, which is a digital incubator, and more recently with the government, we've had support for Eyres Unlimited, and there's some amazing new digital startups there developing what I'd call new digital sustainability propositions. And then we're also, globally, we've launched Telefónica Digital, which is based in London, which is also working on bringing innovative technology to market, and was very closely involved in the smart meter bid as well. So I think it just goes to show that innovation is a critical part of your sustainability journey, and absolutely you've got to set stretching goals. Next kind of question linked to that is a question really about what do you think most prevents consumer take-up of sustainable digital services. Ronan, our chief exec, likes to say that in many ways a lot of the technology that we need to drive behaviour change is there, but actually the biggest challenge is getting people to adopt it and to change the culture and thinking that blocks more sustainable behaviour. So we're interested just to get your view on what drives that. Is it cost? Is it complexity? Is it privacy? Is it low awareness? So over to you for views.
I think there is a range of options there. I think Lucinda can probably put those on the screen for you. and then we'll once we finish that poll, we can move on to talking a little bit about the insights and the learnings that we've had.
Okay, we've got 20 seconds left. Okay, so the results are in. 21% say cost, 26% say complexity, 12% say privacy and personal data, 56% say low awareness, and 6% say other.
Great, thank you. We're just going to look at then very quickly a few insights that we've got from the blueprint. I think number one is collaboration, and Charger out of the box is just one example, as Gareth talked about how we've worked with handset manufacturers. Going big is another, but I think another theme there is we've worked very closely with the government, including Nick Clegg on his social mobility compact, but also Nick Hurd on National Citizen Service. And I think with the pressures that government's under in terms of budget pressures, businesses' role is even bigger in terms of how we can support the social agenda. And then also linked to that actually is the partnership with charities. So Think Big, our youth programme actually has 70 youth partners. In terms of partnerships, then we're interested in your kind of view of what ones would provide the most benefit to us in terms of meeting our blueprint goals. Is it collaborating with other companies? Is it engaging our customer base? Is it engaging our employees? Engaging the NGO community, or working with expert stakeholders, or is it a mix of all of those? What do you think? Let us know. Hi, Lucinda, what's the scores on the doors then?
So the results are still coming in. We've got a few more seconds. Okay, so collaborating with others, 19%. Engaging our customers, 26%. Engaging our employees, 6%. Engaging NGOs, 10%. 16%. All, 35%. And other, 0%.
Okay, great. I mean, I think that's interesting because it shows there's a consensus around the corporate kind of collaboration and collaboration with customers is probably one of the key things. I think just other insight, just to say, I think benefits of the strategy that we put in place. I think one, as Gareth talked about, is you develop a clear strategy that's obviously part of your overall business strategy, but you create these shared business goals. So what you're basically doing is you're mainstreaming sustainability into the core of the business strategy, and that's absolutely critical. I think working with Forum for the Future, they always emphasise it's not going to work if you have a siloed sustainability strategy that lies on top of your business strategy. Second one is innovation. As I said, you've got to set hairy, audacious goals that get you out of the comfort zone. Thirdly is public commitments. I mean, one that sets a new level of stakeholder accountability, but also just internally, in terms of the conversations you have with your board directors and your senior managers, they know this is out in the public domain, and that sets a new bar, frankly, for the leadership teams within the business. And I think the final thing is telling a story, and actually, ultimately, we all need to understand a sustainability journey through a compelling story, and that's what the blueprint has really given us.
Okay, and just finishing off now, ladies and gents, I thought we could just finish off with a couple of learnings and conclusions. I suppose from my perspective, in terms of kind of implementing the blueprint in the UK, there's sort of three things that I guess we've learned through joy and pain. One is to be flexible. We kind of, as Bill has said, our business particularly, but I think any business is always going to be dynamic, and midterm plans change, and people need to be aware of that and mindful of that. And the other thing, I suppose, on that is that we always set ambitious targets, and we still don't know how to reach those fully. But the ambition, as Bill said, drives us on, and I think that the public commitment is a very key part of that. A second element, I suppose, is customers are key. You'll have seen that one of our three goals is engaging 10 million of our customers, and clearly you can't do that without them. And one of the things we've had is you can never predict customer behaviour, and you've seen one of those slides that the challenges that we have for customers in terms of sustainability. Those could be cost or complexity, or whatever it is, and that's just kind of moving that on. Just one thing to say is that we need to tell folks online to move between slides 23 and 24. I think there's a slight hitch between what we're seeing on the screen as presenters and what you guys are seeing on screen as the audience. So you should be on slide 23 now. And the last point actually I was going to make in terms of my three tips was KPIs are king. We've all heard the old adage that you can't measure it, you won't be able to manage it, and we've certainly learned that process within developing the Think Big blueprint. What we've done, and I think it's working, is work very closely with our different directors to make sure that they are comfortable with KPIs and targets that they can deliver on, and basically make use of external auditors to verify progress and to, in essence, in some ways drive those data owners to deliver on their commitments. I think then finishing off, and then I'll hand back to Bill to kind of talk a little bit about the Q&As, was really the kind of overall conclusions. And I think, as we've said before, big, hairy, audacious goals definitely help. There's nothing wrong with being ambitious. It certainly keeps everyone motivated. And the other element of that, I think, is that for anything like this to be successful, it can't be seen as being owned by the sustainability team. It really must be seen as shared ownership across the business, and that's something that our CEO has helped us very audibly to drive home within O2, and I think that's kind of what kept us sane in all of this. One of the things that we kind of really benefited from in O2 was in essence, if you like, the identity or the brand that is Think Big. You've seen in Bill's slide that that rapidly got a traction with our people, and to a point where almost 80% of them were very much aware of what Think Big was, and that really gelled our if you like, the momentum and the enthusiasm behind Think Big within O2. And then the fundamentals, I suppose, are just the foundations, and making sure that we're building the plan on the business strategy. I think that was advice that we got from Forum, and it was very good. And without actually having this embedded in the business strategy, very little of it would have been done. And then I guess the other thing that we've learned in the last 12 months is that when it's finished, it's actually just begun. So it's really the governance and the project management and the reporting and the day-to-day driving of the business on all those commitments and the goals that they've signed themselves up for that really helps drive it and deliver it into the business. So when you've written your blueprint and you think you can sit back and relax and have a cup of tea, actually what you really need is a very, very strong drink, because it's really just about to start for you all. And with that, I'll hand back to Bill and Lucinda.
Thanks, Gareth. We've got a number of different questions that have come in, so we're just going to kick off and ask some of them. And obviously, if people want to chip in more, please do. We'll try and answer as many of them as possible. The first question was about how do we use Yammer. We do use Yammer to engage staff, and it's very much a mix of using the intranet and Yammer. as our key internal channels. I think the other piece, though, and this is definitely from experience, that your big thinkers at a grassroots level are critical. And then the other thing is the engagement events where you hit people's emotions are really important, because if you don't stir the emotions, frankly, people won't fully engage and think big. So although I think Yammer is important, face-to-face inspiring events are absolutely critical. Over to you, Gareth. We had another question on what is the one thing you wish you'd known when you started out?
I'm trying to think of the answer to that.
I think, Gareth's thinking about that. I mean, I think my sort of view of it is that you, as much as possible, you have to spend the time not just with the board directors, but also their direct reports, building an understanding of what you're trying to do. Because I think you can get the board of directors on board, but then actually their direct reports are battling with the commercial pressures as well as the sustainability challenges. And the more that you can work with them creatively to develop the strategy, the better.
Yeah, I think that's right. The only other thing I would add to that is really on the communications front. I think that, never let the importance of internal communications drop off your radar would be the message that I would give. I think where we've had our greatest degree of traction with the business is through the help of our colleagues in the internal comms team and general public affairs, in terms of actually keeping that visibility of Think Big up amongst our people. If people do have further questions to ask, you can just use the chat facility online to build those questions in. We have had one other question, which is, what has been your biggest success and what are you most proud of? So I'll let Phil handle that one.
That, in a way, that's a difficult question, because I'm proud of everything we've done. I mean, I'd pick a few kind of highlights. I think for me, on the core kind of device side, I think Eco Rating has been genuinely groundbreaking. Good example of collaboration with Forum, but also the handset manufacturers. We developed it in partnership with them, and I think that's why it's been so successful. And we're now working with the rest of the industry to take it global. And I think one of our learnings from that as well is, particularly with things like helping customers understand the impact of the technology they use, there's only so much you can do as one business. And it's a bit like the fair trade label. Actually, if you really want to change the industry, you have to collaborate with other companies. And what we were facing was the potential scenario where there were numerous eco ratings, and we realised that actually that wouldn't, frankly, change our customers' world, and we had to get a simpler solution, and that's where what we're now working to for launch next year. So I think that's a brilliant success. And then I think the second thing is Think Big, the youth programme, and we've always had a philosophy of by young people, for young people. It was led by our customers' insight, but actually as the youth crisis has got worse, I think it's just shown to us actually that businesses can do an awful lot to help young people now improve their skills and make a difference. So those are really the two highlights for me, Gareth.
Before I answer that question, just a quick message to Lucinda. Lucinda, we've lost connectivity this end, so if there are any other questions, can you voice them through to us? I think for me it's just the general, again, the staff engagement on all of this. One of the things that we have seen over the last 3 years is the commitment of 11,000 O2 people on sustainability and the level of passion that they have for this when they've been allowed to express that passion. And I think the level of innovation that's kind of coming out of that is really testament to the power of Think Big and the vision of Ronan in terms of actually making this a differentiator between us and others in our sector. Lucinda, are there any other questions coming through from your end?
Yeah, we've got a question from Jessica, who says, internally, how are people incentivised to meet the goals for their parts of the business?
Everybody now has a Think Big objective, and obviously your success at the end of the year, which affects, I suppose, frankly, your pay, your bonus is influenced by your performance against those objectives. So, for example, I'm part of the senior marketing team, and one of our core objectives as a team is Think Big. So that is measured in our key KPIs. So that's the approach we take, and I think again it was one of our blueprint commitments, and it's critical to making sure this is part of BAU, business as usual. If the targets and objectives for Think Big were outside the core of people's jobs and the core of their objectives, frankly, it would get deprioritised. So that has been a significant part, I think, of increasing focus.
Great, thanks. We've got another question from Gabrielle, who says, what is your progress to date on the 2015 goal to deliver CO2 benefits to customers 10 times the impact of your network?
Gabrielle, that's a good question. We're making progress on that. If I talk a little bit about all those goals, let me answer them in turn. So, on the young people side of things, we've been passionate about that for a number of years, and we're kind of migrating towards that goal with reasonable confidence. On the 10 million customers goal, I suppose about 6 to 8 months ago we were a little bit worried about that, and we brought it to our board, and you may be interested to know that as part of our commitment to sustainability, our board meets twice a year with Forum for the Future's founder, Jonathan Parrott, to have a very frank and open discussion about sustainability. And in one of our most recent sessions, I guess about 8 months or so ago, we talked about where we were on the 10 million customers journey. And out of that, as Bill has mentioned earlier on in the conversation this afternoon, we in essence kind of put in place a project to supercharge elements of that. And out of that, we're doing quite well against our projections for that. Equally, on the 10 times our own carbon impact, that we're making progress on that too. We have seen, and in this year, changes to our business that will affect some of our commitments, particularly around the areas of health. But equally, as Bill has mentioned, this year we've seen very positive developments as well. And we talked earlier on about the winning of the £1.5 billion contract with DEC for smart meters. That will see every home in Britain with a smart meter by 2020, and the carbon savings out of that are by no means insignificant. So we're making progress on that, and we're excited about the future from that perspective. What we will be doing in all of this is kind of giving, as Bill mentioned, a full update on all the goals, probably towards the spring of next year. So watch this space, Gabrielle. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks. We've got another question from Ben, who says, every senior leader at M&S is targeted on Plan A delivery. Do you think this is important to drive through the sustainability agenda into the core of the business?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely important that, as I said, it's directors and their direct reports that I think are your critical success factor to drive this through. So I think it's important that group, the senior leadership team, as we call them in O2, have those targets and feel accountability and pressure to deliver on them. And I think, as I said, another aspect of the blueprint that I think contributes to that sense of healthy pressure is the fact that their public commitments linked to individual directorates. So those directorates know that, in effect, any failure is a public failure, and a success is a public success, and that changes the nature of the dynamic around sustainability within the business.
And what I would add to that very quickly, Ben, is that don't put all your eggs into the senior leadership basket. I mean, as Bill has said earlier on in response to an earlier question, everyone in O2 has a sustainability commitment, and that has helped significantly. But what I think has also really been a real driver for change in O2 is the willingness of our senior leadership team and the board to in essence stand up and be the voice for sustainability across the business. And when we were doing flexi working within O2, and that's what became a culture change activity. It was very critical to the success of that culture change that directors themselves were standing up and saying to their people, I want you to do this. This is important to me as a director. It's important to us as a business, and that really has helped drive change.
And I think it's worth adding on that, Gareth, right, because people engagement is critical to the success of your sustainability strategy. And for example, something like flexible working, apart from the commercial benefits, actually the feedback we've got as a result of the flexible working drive we've done is a massive kind of positive piece of feedback from people across the business, because actually they find that's one of the unique selling points of working for us now is that increased flexibility. So I'd always argue that, as Gareth said, your people are important, but then there's also a strong argument that this is a really powerful part of the employee proposition that can build loyalty and commitment to your business.
And we've got one final question from Keith Lee, who says, do we collaborate enough with our competitors on sustainability?
That's a great question. I think the answer is yes. I mean, Bill has talked there, Keithley, about the work we've been doing on eco rating and working across the industry in that. And I don't think it's just a story for our competitors. One of the other things, and again, I point to eco rating, although it's not the only example of this, is to do with our supply chain. When we first launched eco rating, the ambition behind it was to drive change in the supply chain, but also to drive awareness in our customer channels at point of sale. We've done both of that with eco rating, but one of the things that I'm most proud of within O2 is when I've gone back to suppliers and talked to them, and what they've said to me is, people like ourselves on this call who are sustainability professionals in the supply chain have come back to us and said, it's great what you guys have done as O2, because for me as a sustainability professional in a manufacturing environment, I was always like the ugly cousins on to quality and delivery and cost. But now that actually sustainability is right there at point of sale, I actually have a much more profound voice within the business to kind of drive change internally myself. So, I think it's not just with your peers, it's also with your supply chain that you can really make a difference.
The only thing I'd add to that is, I think multi-stakeholder collaboration is important. So I think although, collaborating with your competitors is important, it's also working with charities, government, and other, businesses outside your sector. Is actually normally that combination, I think, is the most powerful in terms of tackling sustainability challenges. The solution really just comes from one industry sector.
Great. Well, I think that's all we've got time for now. So thanks so much to Gareth and Bill. Really interesting presentation. And thanks to everyone who asked questions and gave their feedback. We've been making a recording of the session as we've been going along, and I'll publish that on the site probably tomorrow morning, and I'll email that out to you once it's live. So thanks again for joining, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.